Hello, you're with BBC News Live, and this is your lowdown of everything you might just have missed at the Met Gala. Hundreds of celebrities on the carpet in New York. Yasmin Khatun has been scrolling through lots of the pictures, like many of us have been at home as we woke up this morning. You can see some of the key stars on the set around us as well. We're going to be taking you through the key moments, and we will also explain and talk a little bit about some of the controversy around this year's Met Gala as well. Also on hand to take you through everything we saw at this year's Met Gala is fashion and lifestyle editor from The Garden, Moena Ferrier. Moena, it's great to have you on hand as well. I know you stayed up for much of the night to keep across some of the key looks. So let's get into it. We'll go through some of the biggest stars that we saw on the carpet, the slightly green carpet, we should say. But what exactly, first of all, is the Met Gala, Yasmin? It happens every year.
The Met Gala is essentially a very glamorous fundraising event. It is for the Metropolitan Museum Arts Costume Institute, which has moved to a new location inside the building, a bigger, bolder location for its new exhibition. And every year, as part of that exhibition, to launch it, you have the Met Gala, where these attendees stick to theme. We'll take a look at that exhibition. We don't know too much about what goes on inside, but we know they get a visit for that new exhibition, which is in this new location, and it is this huge fundraising night to keep the Costume Institute alive. And yesterday, another record breaker of an evening, $42 million raised for that institute.
We're talking big numbers, which is something else we will come on to. Moena, costume art was this year's theme. Talk to us about that, explain it, and kind of how it gets decided as well.
So it's essentially costume art is the theme, and it's about the relationship between art and fashion, essentially. And the link between the exhibition itself and the actual dress code tends to be quite tangential, and it was a slightly different one. It was called Fashion as Art, so everybody dressed up in two ways, either as sort of works of art themselves. It was quite a literal taking the painting and putting on a dress, or some of them did sort of arrange their body in a slightly new way. But the idea was to use sort of fashion as a way of sort of valorizing some of the bodies that we don't normally see in fashion. So there was quite a big focus on sort of contorting the body or using corsets, but also a lot of nudity, as you can imagine, a lot of naked dressing, but also some kind of quite literal adoptions of the theme. Some kind of great sort of klimt paintings, which were kind of essentially painted onto dresses. So it was quite it was a tricky theme to interpret. It always is, and it was a strange one, but I think they pulled it off.
Well, let's go through some of the biggest names that we saw at the Met Gala, starting, I think, Yasmin, with Beyoncé. We've got a pic. This is maybe as close as we'll get to be on set with lots of these stars, but Beyoncé back there for the first time in 10 years.
Well, that was a big return. Beyoncé has returned a decade on from her last appearance at the Met Gala, where, all eyes are often on someone like Beyoncé attending an event like this. But she appeared with her family in Olivia Risteng, who she's worn on a number of occasions in this skeletal type of interpretation of fashion as art. I mean, Moena just mentioned naked dressing there. I guess it's taking on the body as art in that reference. But also Beyoncé taking on this, role as chair alongside Nicole Kidman, Venus Williams, and also attending with her family. I mean, Blue Ivy made an appearance with her, who at the age of 14 is slightly underage actually for the Met, which has an age of 18, I believe, for attendance.
Yes, maybe when Beyonce's your mum and she's a co-chair,
I think so.
it helps.
I think so.
Yeah, we did just see her there on screen, Beyoncé with her family as well. Blake Lively was also back at the Met Gala, also on the same day that her case with co-star from the film It Ends With Us, Justin Baldoni, was settled.
So the last time Blake Lively attended the Met Gala, she was serving as co-chair. So she was up and she was in that, big Empire State dress, which transformed on the steps. And of course, she made her career on the steps as a young actress on Gossip Girl of the steps in the Metropolitan Museum. So her appearance also timed in line with this, moments after we heard that her case with her co-star Justin Baldoni had been settled, I think talks to what the Met Gala is as a cultural reference point for stars, for brands, brand ambassadors to come in, and to say, I'm here and I'm a part of this cultural moment.
Moana, I mean, as somebody who, not only kind of stayed up for much of the night, but I'm sure closely follows this event year in, year out, what was your take on not only what we saw from some of the co-chairs, but also more generally, what stood out to you?
I mean, it's hard to sort of ignore the sort of who attended and why they attended, because it is essentially seen as the Oscars of the fashion industry, except for nobody wins anything. It's just kind of it's a big power play. It's about fashion, but it's also about who's matters and who's got status, who's got power, and also who's got money. And sort of the biggest standout for me was obviously the sponsor, the main sponsor of the night, which was Jeff Bezos and his wife Lauren Sanchez Bezos. Now, Jeff Bezos was not; he's the Amazon founder. He wasn't on the green carpet, but Lauren was, and it was very hard to kind of look past that as to, in regards to who actually also attended with him. Some people who didn't attend perhaps related to his presence, but also why exactly he was there, because it is a fundraiser. Anna Wintour has a guest list. She's a gatekeeper, and she gets to pick and choose who goes. But she tries to ensure that only the most culturally relevant people attend. But it is also, because it is a fundraiser, it's also people with big pockets. And it's hard to ignore the fact that our world at the moment is increasingly run by big tech. And it turns out they want an in on some of these kind of events. Mark Zuckerberg was also there. There was a table owned by OpenAI. Similarly with Snapchat. So it really was, the reason why people are calling it the sort of the tech gala rather than the Met Gala.
And as I mentioned, we will explain in a little bit more depth some of the controversy around this year's Met Gala, Yasmin, part of which was because of some kind of backlash against where a lot of the funding for this year's gala came from. But just in terms of, because we know that a lot of the things people are searching for today is who was there, what were they wearing. I mean, we saw just on screen a few minutes ago some of the co-chairs. We've got Rihanna and ASAP Rocky just behind you, Yasmin. Not really, but on a screen. I mean, anything else really that you think, stood out?
I mean, in terms of the outfits, as you mentioned, Rihanna there in Maison Margiela, ASAP Rocky in Chanel. I mean, Chanel was definitely Matteo Blasi, is the man of the moment, I think, in fashion. And ASAP Rocky, in addition to Anna Wintour and Nicole Kidman, who's one of the co-chairs, all in Chanel, straight off the runway. And I think, like Moana mentioned, I guess the significance of who is there, what are they wearing, what are they representing, often as brand ambassadors, as someone who is there. When we talk about the sponsorship for these events, it's often the big fashion houses who sponsor the Met Gala, but this year of course it was Jeff Bezos who was the chief sponsor. And I think some of the controversy around that, it's interesting. I mean, Anna Wintour did respond to it, and she said, Lauren Sanchez will be an asset to the event and is grateful to her generosity, also noting that she didn't think the Met Gala could happen almost without their support. Moving the Costume Institute, obviously using that funding, they've moved to a new location. It's interesting, that dynamic between fashion, business, politics, power. Another interesting layer to that, of course, is New York mayor often attends this event, but this time the new mayor, Mamdani, wasn't in attendance, and instead used, the evening to raise, the platform for garment workers from New York.
Yes, he said he'll be not attending and wanting to focus on, quote, affordability in New York. We were just seeing some images on screen of Anna Wintour, of course, a huge figure, not only in the world of fashion and her career with Vogue, but also in terms of her control almost of the Met Gala.
Well, it's very interesting, this position that Anna Wintour holds, because as the former editor of Vogue, she's now moved into a position at Condé Nast, where the new Vogue editor isn't actually called the editor-in-chief, just showing how much authority and power Anna Wintour has in curating not just events like these, but where Condé Nast, I believe, is heading itself. And you know, if we look at her comments regarding sponsorship, the attendees, we also saw some new faces attending, but she really is the sort of mastermind behind the Met Gala.
Yes, and another of the co-chairs, Venus Williams, was also asked about the funding of this year's Met Gala, but also some of the protests that had been seen, not just on the night itself, but also in the build-up to this year's Met Gala, since it was announced that Jeff Bezos and his wife would be funding the event. There's been various protests. This was outside the event in New York yesterday, but in the build-up there's been various sort of posters and the like seen around the city. Venus Williams said she didn't have a problem with the event. That's what she told our BBC News colleagues who were there at the gala. And of course there's no kind of exact sort of, no one said specifically if they haven't turned up that this is why. But I mean, briefly explain sort of the bigger picture as to why there might be some tension.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, events like these happen as a result of backers. You know, last year it was LVMH, who are also obviously the brand and fashion house as it is owned by, you know, a hugely wealthy company. You know, Saint Laurent were also part of the sponsors this year, but it was Jeff Bezos who had taken on that chief role. And there had actually been rumours around a Condé Nast takeover, and I think some of that has spurred on some of the protests with regards to their influence and the proximity to power. And I guess, you know, how close that relationship is for an event like this. And interestingly, the head of the Costume Institute at the Met Gala has spoken about independence and its own position away from, any other funding. So the various threads of influence, I mean, there were some individuals who weren't there who were regular attendees, but there's nothing to say any exact reason why we didn't see someone like Zendaya, for instance. Her stylist Laura Roach was on the red carpet, but she wasn't. But then in saying that, we saw the big return of lots of big stars as well, like Blake Lively, like Beyoncé. And the event, I think, is grappling with itself as a cultural reference point. How significant is the Met Gala? Are people still interested in times of economic difficulties, at time of global challenges? You know, how relevant is an event like this, even if it is a fundraiser? And an interesting note that I noticed actually on the Vogue website, which Anna Wintour has referenced, is the Met Gala economy, talking about the types of jobs and interests, you know, and what actually New York gains from holding an event like this. But it's interesting that they would feel the need to reference that.
So Morwenna, finally then, I mean, obviously you've mentioned some of what are your key takeaways from the event overall. If there was one thing that you kind of urge people to go and have a look at, one person, one outfit, as they kind of scroll through their feeds for the rest of the day, you know, what would it be? What has been something that's either put a smile on your face, perhaps?
Well, I think the kind of only person who really sort of met the brief properly was Bad Bunny, who seemed to age himself with prosthetics. And he wore sort of a custom Zara suit, which is interesting in itself, being a kind of high street brand. But because the dress code was about the body and sort of the relevance of the body in fashion and fashion within the body, he was the only one who kind of seemed to reference aging body. Everybody else kind of wanted to kind of use it as a platform to kind of show off their clothes, their relationship with designers. Whereas he was like, no, this is about aging, and this is something that we don't really see in fashion. And I think in many ways, the Costume Institute is self-financed, and it's the only part of the museum that is self-financed, which is quite telling about how the art world views fashion. Even though most, it's one of the most popular exhibitions you have in museums is art museums, I still think it is a very important sort of cultural moment. And as much as I feel very critical of Jeff Bezos' involvement in it, I still think you should be able to enjoy looking at pictures of glamorous people wearing absurd clothes.
And there are several of those pictures on the screen as you speak. And yeah, Bad Bunny, the way he transformed himself was quite incredible as well. We should say as well, nothing directly from Jeff Bezos. We did see his wife, as we've mentioned, on the green carpet. I keep going to say red carpet, but as you can see, it is quite green. But listen, Yasmin and Moena, thank you both very much for joining us with some of your hot takes from the evening as well. And we know that you are still looking for pictures and photographs of some of your favourite stars. You can do that if you head to the BBC News website. There is the perfect roundup that you can read through and have a look at some of the biggest, the key looks from the evening. That is on the BBC News website. But thank you very much for watching.